Hi, and welcome back to Reflect Forward. I'm your host, Kerry Siggins, and I'm so glad you are here today. Today, my guest is Hope Zvara. She is so amazing. She is the CEO and founder of Mother Trucker Yoga, which she tells us all about is a fascinating company that has helped hundreds of thousands of truckers improve their wellness and fitness. And she has a mission to help a million truckers. And it's near and dear to my heart. I share the story of my father in law who passed away a few years ago, who was a trucker, who did have health issues. And so she is just so inspiring. She has overcome so much adversity. And I know that you're going to just be inspired by this episode. So hang tight, and I'll be right back with Hope. All right, everyone. I am back with Hope Zvara. Hope, I'm so excited to dive into your story. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
I am looking forward to our conversation. I can already tell it's going to be a good one.
All right. So, you are the CEO and founder of Mother Trucker Yoga. Can you tell us a little bit about what Mother Trucker Yoga is and how you got there?
Yes, I always tell people I'm not a truck driver. My husband has a CDL, but utilizes it more on the construction side, heavy equipment. Back in 2015, I owned and operated a yoga studio and a state approved vocational school here in my hometown in Wisconsin. And I ran a successful business. I was making six figures, had a team of teachers, was running a school, spoke at all the big fitness conferences. But I always felt like this wasn't where I belonged. Like, this wasn't it. This wasn't the tribe I was supposed to be leading through the Mojave Desert. Like, there's more out there for me. But I was smart enough to know don't jump off of a ship before there's another one to jump on. So that kind of internal searching prayer went on for about 2 years. And then in 2017, I went to a local business mixer here in my small hometown. I met a guy I had never seen before. I start talking to him on my quest to figure out what was next in life. I was kind of starting to do corporate wellness. And so that's what I'm trying to pitch this guy, right? And he stops me and says, "Do you have anything for truck drivers? Like in the cab of the truck?" And I think I'm funny sometimes. I throw up my hands and I said, "Mother Trucker Yoga." Really just trying to get a rise out of this guy, trying to make a slightly awkward conversation a little bit more tolerable. And my husband was next to me. Normally, in my husband and my relationship, I'm the balloon. I'm the let's jump and figure it out later. And he's the let's go home and say no and wake up the next day and still say no. But he looked at me and was like, "You should totally do it." So we shook on it. He called me up the next morning. We both had done a little research and we thought we have something here. And in 4 months, we built a business from scratch, we meaning me. And a year later, I bought him out of the business. And in the last 7-ish years, I've helped more than 200,000 truck drivers in various capacities change lanes in their health and wellness, all with small, simple changes.
That is such a fascinating story. So, tell me, was it hard to get truckers on board with this? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes and no. I think, like anything, I was brand new to an industry I had never stepped foot in ever. My, at the time, partner was in trucking, but more on the fuel side, selling fuel cards to companies, but he knew the dynamics of it. And we kind of knew, oh, let's go to this conference and have a booth and let's do this. And so we kind of had a little bit of some structure and idea, but nobody knew my name. Nobody knew who I was. But one thing I was really good at was communicating. One thing I was really good at was putting myself out there and having those conversations. And so I just started to do what I knew best, and that was talk to people. And so went to trucking events, had our booth, started having conversations. And usually when people would see our name, one of two things would happen. They'd either laugh, pull out their camera and be like, "This is the most brilliant thing I've ever seen in my life." Or they would look at it, pull out their camera, take a picture and go, "Huh, I could never do yoga." Either way, it created conversation. And I think for a lot of people, when they're trying to lead a tribe, when they're trying to build a brand, you need something that's memorable. One of the things that I think I did right in this kind of career switch, I guess you could say, was I narrowed down in my niche. Before it was yoga's for everybody. 2 days old to 102 days old, athletes, moms, pregnancy, I do it all. I had this idea of I had to appeal to everybody. And a great mentor said to me when I was transitioning, Hope, you could really have something here, but you have to stay in your lane. You have to let go of the old you, of all the other hats, and you just need to go all in on this. And that was scary. That first year, oh, it was so tempting to go back. But I believe that that first year, with absolute certainty and clarity that that was who I was talking to, is what helped accelerate some of those conversations and relationships, and also be able to bring people into my world to say, this is unique. Even if I'm not sure I like it, I got to know more about it. And I think that was such a great benefit to me.
I completely agree with you. I preach focus mostly because I have a hard time myself. I'm ambitious and I like to do lots of different things. And I also tend to think that we as an organization can do more than we can actually possibly do. Um,
Thank goodness I'm
so
not the
I've
only
had,
one.
yeah, I think there's a lot of us out there, but you do have to really hone in and focus. So, how did you create that discipline for yourself to say, okay, it is scary, and there are these other maybe opportunities that you could grow and do, and not get shiny object syndrome or fear of missing out? How did you create that discipline?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. So, first, I learned the art of setting a goal and working backwards. And so, prior in my previous business, I never really thought about my end game. It was just kind of like, wake up and do what I'm good at. I made money. Yay. I have new clients. Yay. And I think there's a lot of people caught in that daily grind. They're the apprentice in their own business. And there's success, but it's always in the moment success. And so when I started Mother Trucker Yoga, I thought to myself, what's my end goal? What do I want? And I really had to think about that. What is the impact that I want to make? So I created what is called a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal. Jim Collins calls it the gulp factor. And mine is to help 1 million truck drivers change lanes in their health and fitness with small, simple changes by 2031. I have it on my bulletin board over in my office off to the side. Every opportunity that comes my way, I look to that and say, does this get me closer to that goal? And if the answer is no, then I say, no, not right now. And so that's twofold, because some people think, well, then I'm saying no. No, I'm saying no, not right now. Because as I rise in my business, then and only then can I diversify, can I expand, can I start doing leadership coaching or business consulting. But if I don't even have a business, none of that is even credible, because I'm coaching on ideas. I'm not coaching on truth and fact and what I've created. So I think the future goal is something that a lot of people have to get clear on, because how else do you measure where you're at in that success in your journey? But the second piece is reminding myself of what I set out to do, the problem I solve, the audience I'm serving, what types of solutions am I going to provide? Because I can't do everything. I can't be everything to everyone. And so I really thought to myself, I'm good at a lot of stuff. But what I'm really good at in my craft is I'm really good with fitness, functional movement, ergonomics. That is going to be my thing. It was really tempting to be like nutrition plans, mindset. Then you dilute the waters of how you become memorable, what you can be known for. And so I had to discipline myself and fight the urge to say, no, not right now. When I'm speaking, when I'm training, when I'm writing, whatever it is, I'm the fitness girl. I'm the yoga girl. And I'm okay with that, because I know when drivers come into my world, on the back end, they get nutrition, they get mindset, they get breathing, they get lifestyle education. But it's too much up front. And I think for a lot of people, even a lot of leaders, they're trying to be everything, and that's not a good leader. A good leader says, this is what I want you to learn. I'm going to lead you to this point, and maybe you do have to migrate to somebody else. But until you master this, you can't do anything else. And so I really attached to that. And I was like, well, what do I have to lose? I can always go back to doing what I was doing before. And I'm so glad that I did, because it has paid off.
And so, how do you deliver these services to your clients?
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. So we have an app, and this is something that I collected a lot of data working kind of one-on-one with drivers and in small groups for the first couple of years. I think a lot of people, and I work with a lot of business consulting clients now, they want the big thing in the beginning. I want to develop an app. I want to develop a membership site. Well, a membership site doesn't work without members. And so I did the front end work, which is a little less sexy, working one on one, working in small group. But I was collecting data from those drivers saying, is what I'm thinking what they really want and need? And so after about 2.5, 3 years, I felt like, okay, I know exactly how to serve these men and women. And we started to develop an app, all 3 to 5 minute videos. We don't do a lot of big, long workout programs because if you know anything about a truck driver, they don't have a living room. They don't really have a bed. They don't have a gym. It's a 10 by 10 little cubicle they're driving around with very limited space. And so I'm bringing fitness broken down into small bite-sized pieces into the driver's seat, into the sleeper, outside the rig while they're filling up with fuel. And this idea of lifestyle fitness versus a yoga workout or a exercise program. So the app is one avenue. The other avenue is that we work with companies and I do help them develop their own wellness program or they can utilize mine. And then the last tier is that we work with CDL schools, commercial driver license schools, integrating in a certification on preventative wellness. So right now, those schools, it's like how to take your blood pressure, how to know if you have high blood sugar. Well, none of that matters to most people until they have high blood pressure and have diabetes.
Right.
And we're kind of solving that piece in a simple certification that they can utilize with their students during the downtime in their schooling. So there's gaps in education depending on what they're doing. I'm just filling those gaps. So it's no extra hours, which is a bonus to the school.
Interesting. Great business model. Okay, so going from a yoga studio and serving an entirely different type of clientele into predominantly male dominated industry, that takes a lot of confidence. I know because I did the same thing almost 20 years ago. Did you always have this confidence or is this something that you've had to develop over time?
um, I don't think I was confident. I think I had confidence in myself, but I don't think I had confidence, if that makes sense. Growing up into my early 20s, I was able to put myself out there. I was able to perform. I was able to get up on stage and do those things, but I definitely wasn't confident in myself. I was a people pleaser by nature. I was always overly concerned with other people more than myself. So I had to unlearn some of those behaviors. But what I learned is when you stick to what you know, when you stay in your lane, and when you show up and say, this is who I am, I can't change who I am in this moment. This is what you get. All of a sudden, all that worry of, am I good enough? Am I pretty enough? Am I smart enough? Will they believe me? Just like washes away because some of my competition in my industry, it's minimal, have PhDs. They're
Yeah.
physical therapists. They're doctors. I'm a college dropout with 20 years of experience working with thousands of real life people. But none of that bothers me. I can go toe to toe with any of them. And I am totally confident that what I'm doing, my education level, my ability to read people's bodies is spot on and might even be better than theirs. When you stay in your lane, when you know what you know and you stick to that, all of that worry just disappears.
Yeah. You literally took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly how I feel. People always ask me that similar question. And it was like, I just did it.
Yeah, I'm not claiming
Exactly.
to be a therapist or a drug
No.
rehab counselor or, sometimes you meet those people, they're like slinging terms around, and I'm like, I'm not in competition with you. I'm not here to beat you or be better than you. I'm just here to serve the mission I'm here to serve in the way I'm here to do it. That's on you. And I
Mhm.
am in a male dominated industry. Less than 10% of women are in the trucking industry in all capacities. And I actually think that that plays in my favor because
Mhm.
for a lot of men, having another man tell you you're not healthy, you're not taking care
Yeah.
of yourself, that can be a little combative. And so
Mhm.
I find that they actually open up to me a little bit more because I think sometimes that feminine energy is a little bit more easy to talk to and more inviting. So I actually think it's a strength. Maybe I have an intimidating personality. Maybe it's the confidence thing. I don't think I'm intimidating, but I think confidence can be intimidating. but I quite enjoy it. I love the men and women I work with. They're good people. They just haven't had the right guidance and education up to this point.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's shift gears a little bit because I know that you overcame a lot of obstacles and adversity in your life. So, can you share a little bit of what growing up was like for you? Because I think it's a really important part of the story of where you came from. Because I think that a really great way to measure success is not just how far you go, but really how far you've traveled. And so, I'd love to share a little bit of your story.
Yeah. I always tell people I didn't find yoga. Yoga found me, and yoga became a lifeline, I think more for me than it even was my students. However many years ago, when I was younger in my 20s, I struggled with addiction, eating disorder, drugs, alcohol, manic anxiety, depression. And I don't want to say my family gave up on me, but it was kind of like they didn't know what else to do for me. And quite frankly,
Mhm,
I didn't know what to do with myself. One day I was working as a lifeguard at our local rec center, and one of my coworkers just walked up to me randomly and said, "You look like someone that would practice yoga." I don't even think I heard the word yoga at that point. This was like early 2000s. And something in me just snapped. I went home and got on my dial up internet and looked for a class. I found one in a neighboring town, and my Wednesday night yoga class became my weekly ritual of second chances. I was praying to be healed every single night, to wake up and not have these issues, to be normal, to not be struggling with all of the things I was struggling. I lived in a household with, the best way I can describe it, I love my parents dearly, but very emotionally immature parents. They did not
mhm,
have the capacity to not like to separate their problems away from their parenting. And there was a lot of emotional disconnect there. And, you know, what do you do? And I don't blame them. I take ownership over my own life. But yoga became that lifeline for me where I was able to go to the mat as a student week after week and get clear with myself, be raw, where I left that yoga class feeling like I could do this. And even if it was for a few hours or a few days, I felt like myself, like a normal person for the first time, that clarity in my mind. And that eventually led me to my own teacher saying, "Have you ever thought about becoming a yoga teacher?" I was in college at the time, going through the motions because that's what I was taught to do. And I went to a yoga training in Colorado, in Rollinsville, Colorado for a month, came back home and felt like this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And didn't re enroll that fall. Eventually opened my own yoga studio because I felt like I was alone still, that there was no one around for me, and built this community of people, which I really, looking back, feel like they were there for me, maybe even more than I was there for them.
mhm.
And we built this amazing healing community that eventually turned into a school, and I started speaking and started doing all these great things. And my husband and I in that mix had gotten married, and then we tragically lost our daughter. And when everyone was expecting me to relapse back into addiction, back into all of these things that I had been caught up in, I did the exact opposite. I decided that there was purpose in her, that I got to live and she didn't, and there had to be a reason for that. And I clung to that in hopes that I would see the reasons develop. And something amazing happened. And in the years coming after her passing, I started to see all of these amazing reasons why without her death, I would have never saw that. I would have never been brave
Yep.
enough to step into that. And I think a lot of our greatest leaders and greatest mentors have gone through tragedy. I'm not saying people need to go through bad things to be great people, but because you know such a stark contrast of what life was or could be again, and you can't go back there, it just, you have no other choice but to propel yourself forward into helping others and being something great. Like, I would never want anyone to go through what I have went through in any capacity, and that's partly what drives me every single day.
Yep. Well, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate your vulnerability. To kind of experience shares for myself, I had substance abuse issues too. And a big part of me recovering was exercise. I am an avid yoga practicer now. But that wasn't where I started. It was like, okay, I'm gonna go run like ultra marathon. And so that's what I did. The longest I've ever run is 50 miles, but that's what I did. I poured my healing and recovery into moving my body. And in reality, I was just changing one dopamine hit for another.
Mhm.
Going to running ultra marathons was a heck of a lot healthier than doing drugs.
Mhm.
I do think that people underestimate the power of moving your body to
Mhm.
get through really tough times. It's always my go-to, whether I had a stressful day or something really, terrible happened. How do I move my body? And I had a miscarriage after my first son was born, and I had major health issues afterwards. It took me about a year to recover. But my naturopath was like, you've got to do yin yoga. You cannot do anything but yin yoga for 30 days because your adrenal system is just on overload and it's completely impacting your hormones. And it's why you're having all these issues. And so I'm like, yin yoga. What? Like, I
For a
can't,
runner,
like,
that's like torture. It's like the best worst thing anyone
oh
can
my
ever do.
gosh. But it's really actually hard, like, I
Mhm.
was like, just sit there and stretches for, 5 or 6 minutes,
And
but
pace
what I
yourself.
realized yeah, it was so hard exactly, and I did it, and that's when I actually started practicing yoga every single day, was back then, and that was probably, gosh, a decade ago now, but yeah, it was amazing how much it helped me heal, both mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically from the adrenal overload that I had gotten myself into. And so, yeah, I hope that everybody listening to this can really appreciate the power of moving your body, but also the mindfulness aspect of yoga and how it really does allow you, if you practice that way, to turn inside and to look at yourself and to heal.
Yeah, as a recovering addict, I felt like I was perfecting not feeling. Like that's a lot of
Mhm.
times when you're an addict, you're running from your feelings. And yoga taught me how to feel again. That staying in the pose, breathing, reflecting on your thoughts, knowing that feelings actually do pass versus needing to
Yeah.
impulsively act on them. In business, as a leader and as a mentor, as a business owner, I also recognized that oftentimes business problems were personal problems in disguise.
Yeah.
And so yoga has given me this introspective ability. When I'm struggling in my business, I need to look to my personal life, interpersonal and extrapersonal. Like I need to look at both of those because there's usually something's off. And the business is like the residual or what's caught in the crossfire. Or if I feel like maybe at a leadership level, people are not receptive to me for some reason, or maybe I'm coming off in a way that I'm not intending because rarely is it a business problem. Oftentimes it's a me problem or it's a personal problem. And until I deal with those things, it's going to keep on spewing into my business, into my leadership, into the way I communicate with my team, with my clients, with my peers. And I think for a lot of people, that is a hard concept and that is a hard pill to swallow because who wants to look at themselves and point the finger at themselves? And I have to thank yoga for that because yoga really taught me to stop saying, it was her
Mhm.
problem, it was his problem, they did this to me, instead saying, "Whatever happened is done. I am in control of my life. I need to take ownership over my life. What are you gonna do now, Hope, moving forward?" And when I couldn't figure it out, I went to the mat to get clear, to
Mhm.
get calm, to breathe, and not always the answer developed there, but I knew at least I was centered enough to be able to move in the right direction.
Yeah. It sounds so familiar. I mean, it's why I wrote my book, right? The ownership mindset is really that whole idea of taking responsibility for everything that happens in your life. And a big reason why I dug myself such a deep hole in the throes of addiction and body image issues and all other kinds of things was because I wasn't taking ownership, right? I thought I was a victim of all of these things. And, obviously using drugs and alcohol was a coping mechanism for me, but I realize now just like how disempowering it is to blame, right? The opposite of responsibility isn't irresponsibility. It is blame. It's that victim mentality. And it's the most empowering mindset that you can have. And so whatever method you have to look at yourself, whether that's yoga, that's meditation, that's therapy, coaching, that's that introspection that's really required. And it all starts with you. And I think if we could all realize that as humans, as leaders, right, everybody is reacting or responding to how I'm showing up. And so how do I want to influence that? And yes, I can't own other people's, reactions, but I certainly can control how I'm going to show up. And so, yeah, I think that that's really driven my leadership as it sounds like yours and
Mhm.
just improves life so much when you just own it.
It's almost freeing. It's almost the
Mhm.
opposite of what you would think, like, "Oh, that's so burdensome or
Yeah.
so heavy." But being able to do that, like, immediately takes the pressure off of me personally because I'm like, "I own it." Like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, I shouldn't have said that. You're right." Owning that allows both parties to be free to move forward, and when I recognize that, I need a mirror every day. When I lay in bed at night, I put one hand on my heart, one hand on my belly, I breathe, and I reflect through my day. How could I be better? And it's not to nitpick myself, it's to reflect with the mirror to be able to do better for myself and my surroundings and the people in my life the next day. It's the wanting to be the best version of myself, which goes back to leadership coming from a deep, heavy place because I know I can't go back there. I believe someone gave up their life for me. I can't live in vain like that. And I think having
Mhm.
something to drive you is
Yep.
sometimes the exact motivation that leaders are grabbing from to help them excel, to help them rise above adversity. Or when you hear their story, it feels so exceptional and extraordinary because they've come from a really hard place. And yeah, sometimes people can't relate. I don't think all people are meant to be leaders. It's kind of like you can't have a
Mhm. Oh,
tribe
yeah.
full of chiefs. And the people that are leaders, I think there's a reason why they're put in that position. And you owe it to the people that are waiting to be mentored by you to own your stuff, to rise to the occasion, and to put your mind and your body and your spirit out there to what is intended for you. And when you do that, man, life does get easier. I mean, it gets harder, but it gets easier.
I think you're right. I don't think everybody can be people leaders, but everybody can be a self leader. That's where it all stems from. And it's really hard to be a exceptional people leader if you're not an exceptional self leader. That self leadership does come from taking responsibility and owning your feelings and speaking up and figuring out how to deal with your baggage so that you can build your self confidence and taking care of yourself.
It's kinda
Right,
like
that's a big
having
one.
done it first. It's like if
Uh-huh.
you're
Uh-huh.
shopping around for a mentor and you ask the mentor, "Well, have you done it?" and they say no, that may be a sign that it's not that they're not where they're supposed to be, but exactly what you do, that you're saying, this self leadership, this self
Yeah.
mentorship, like they got to apply it still. It's one thing to have knowledge, it's another thing to apply that knowledge and kind of grow with that knowledge. I do feel like that's a step in today's world people are trying to
Yeah.
skip. And
Yeah.
that step is really what solidifies leadership, what solidifies mentorship,
Yes.
what solidifies a brand, whatever it is when you have that as a firm foundation.
Yeah. Nope, I completely agree with you. So I remember the first time that I had heard of this concept of self-leadership, and it was when I was talking to my mom about coming home after my overdose in 2006, which was that inflection point in my life where I was said, I'm not going to live my life in vain anymore, much like how you shared. And I was lamenting to her about my job and the state of my life and how I really wanted to grow my career. I was always a high functioning addict, driving my career and all of those things. And she said, you can't be a great people leader unless you learn how to lead yourself well first. And I was like,
Mm.
lead myself well? What do you mean? She's like, well, you're leading yourself every day, but you're doing a shitty job of it right now. That was that first time I had ever heard of the concept. And that was such a game changer for me. Like, how do I lead myself well? I can't be making these decisions and I can't be blaming other people for my problems. It really is so empowering when you step into self leadership and you can change your life.
I love that. I love the fact that that's what parents and close family is
I
good for,
know.
right? Like telling you exactly what you need to hear. And if we're open, we take that and we run with it, which seems like, I kind of did that in my life. And it seems like you kind of did that in your life. Like
Yeah.
maybe it's right time, right moment, but I think we're all given opportunities. It's whether or not we take it. And you took the opportunity.
All right. So, a couple more questions before we wrap things up. How has your philosophy of self leadership and empowerment and owning everything that happens in your life translated into the team that you've built?
Yeah, great question. So I think for me, it has attracted people that want that type of leadership, but more importantly, have also done the internal work. I think one thing that I have done really well is I don't let just anybody in now. And it's not that I'm like, oh, you're good, you're bad, but it's rather what type of environment do I want to
Yeah.
create where we can all be the mirror for each other, but we can all rise together. I tend to be a little like, let's do it and jump in, a little impulsive sometimes, like in the moment. And sometimes that's not good. And so yoga's kind of taught me how to put on the brakes, but it has allowed me time with my team because I have people that live remotely. I have people that I work with here. I bring certain people to trade shows. I have groupings of team members that work with me in various capacities, but it's allowed me to really step back and think, how will this person work with the other people? How will this person best reflect me? How will this person be different than me to round me out, especially at a show? Because different strokes for different folks. I want to make sure we can diversify and speak to as
Mhm.
many people as possible. So I think on a leadership level and building a team, this lead by the self first has just helped me to slow down and has helped me to make
Yeah.
better judgment calls and be able to say no. Cause I've had people are like, I want to work for you. And normally the people pleasing me would have been like, sure. And it was like a disaster. And now I'm a lot more confident to say, thank you so much. I'm so honored. But right now, I don't think is the right time. And I'm okay with that because I've learned it's not my responsibility to help someone in their reactions. I can only lead with love and deliver with kindness. Beyond that, it's out of my control. And the second I understood that, I was really able to communicate better with my team members and build a team that has been with me for a long time. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, that's great. And what does the future look like? So you wanna help 1,000,000 truckers improve their wellness and their lives. How do you get there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, it's really looking at impacting every CDL school in the country. I realized a few years ago, working on the back end when drivers are 55 and 65 are about to retire is great. And I love that. But that's not fixing the industry problem. I have to go to where it starts and impacting these schools. On that level, I'm a part of a board in the trucking industry called Women in Motion. They're a part of one of the largest trucking associations in the nation and really trying to change the culture on a federal level of what it is and how it is we see driver health and wellness to start making some changes that companies and different types of people in the industry have to adhere by because it still is kind of like health and wellness is an option in trucking, and that
Yeah.
should not be that way. But also, a few years ago, I developed a product line called Road Relief Wellness. We develop natural pain relief products and wellness products for drivers specifically. We sell in some truck stops across the country. We'll be in a large chain at the end of the year. But for me to be able to get in the hands of these drivers, small, simple things that they can do to help themselves feel better. Because if we feel better, we're more likely to make positive action and positive change. And that is just a cycle that's going to continue to roll over again and again and again. That is definitely one avenue that I'm continuing to build on and explore more and more because I can't be everywhere, but my products can.
I love that. My father-in-law was a trucker, born in Ohio, but, basically his whole life in Michigan. So Midwestern, blue collar roots. And he drove for most of his life. And well, even right up until he died, he was in a big, huge dump truck, still like, I gotta drive. It's the only thing that makes me feel better. But he got a very rare type of cancer.
Mm.
We think probably from breathing in all of the diesel fumes. And then, of course, sitting. Two hip replacement surgeries that he decided to do at the same time. But he did not move his body like that. He didn't do yoga, he didn't stretch. And so I really appreciate what you're doing because he died, it'll be 2 years ago here in September, and he's the toughest human being I know, but the reason why his health was so poor was because he spent 35 years in a truck driving crisscrossing across the United States and not taking care of himself. So your story is very impactful and meaningful to me, and I really appreciate what you're doing to help all of those people who keep the supply chain running.
Thank you.
They're such an important part of our economy.
I agree. Because for truck drivers, you should never have to choose between your career and your health. That
Yeah.
shouldn't be even a question that we're asking
Mhm.
ourselves. And so for those of you listening, you may not be a truck driver, but these men and women really are the lifeline of America. And so support them, love on them, let them know that you care. I mean, these are the little things that help them think I matter. I should take better care of myself. I should maybe do this because they're seen,
Yeah.
because they're acknowledged. And that's kind of just the little things that don't feel like much, but definitely impact in the long run.
Well, for all of us, right? It's for all of us,
Hmm.
and that's where we're all connected as humanity, and we all need those things and want those things, so thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
All right, signature question before we wrap things up. The name of this podcast is Reflect Forward. What does reflect forward mean to you?
Reflect forward means to me is having a clear vision as to where I'm going and being present to where I am right now, because I can't get where I want to go if I can't be comfortable where I am right now and reflect on where I am right now and the choices that I'm making so that I can make that next right decision. So I can make that next right step or take that next big leap. And that presence is the word that comes to mind for me when I hear that. But I can't be present and I can't move forward or take that next step if I don't know where the heck I'm going. That's what I think about when I hear that.
My favorite line from Alice in Wonderland is when she's talking to the Cheshire Cat and she says, "Which path should I take?" And he says, "Where are you going to go?" And she's like, "Anywhere will do." And then he said, "Any path will get you there." And that's so true. Like, if you don't know where you want to go, then how can you pick a path to get to some future state of success? So I love that answer. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. So, how can people find you?
Mother Trucker Yoga on all of our social platforms. You can also just put my name in, Hope Zavara, that's Zvara. Check out what we're doing. We do a lot of social media posts, a lot of blogging. You can head over to our website, mothertruckeryoga.com. Check out our book, check out some of our pain relief products. But more importantly, find some of those small, simple changes that you can add into your own life. The driver's seat is the chair, the sleeper is your bed at home, outside the truck is your hallway in your house. You can make those small, simple changes towards better health. You can make those small, simple changes toward better leadership. You can make those small, simple changes towards getting to know yourself, and it starts today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your success. I love this interview. Thank you so much for coming on the show
Thank
today.
you so much.
All right, hang tight, everybody. I'll be right back. All right, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed that podcast. She's like my sister, which is really funny. She lives in Wisconsin, and that's where my family's from. So I don't know, maybe there is some relation there, but we have such similar stories and experiences and energetic personalities. So it was really fun to interview her, and I hope that you enjoyed it. With that, I will leave you to your day. I hope you have a fantastic one. And if you like this podcast, please share it with a friend, write a review, go onto YouTube and subscribe to it. Subscribe to it on your favorite podcast platform. I always appreciate it. It helps with the algorithms and it spreads these amazing stories like people like Hope who are doing so much to make the world a better place. So thanks so much. We'll see you next week.